Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. We're here with the infamous Tommy. Danny, right? Sorry. So, some people know you, some don't. What is it that you stand for? I mean, just to introduce yourself.
Okay, so what do I stand for? You might have to edit out some thinking because that's a big question.
Yeah.
So I'm going to think about that for a few seconds,
Sure.
if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, maybe I can help you with this. Today, you were talking about... Oh, you're thinking, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. I thought that, I'll help you with it.
Yeah, go on.
But today, you made a very interesting claim. And I must commend you because you've been very consistent with it, for years now. For many years I've seen you, you haven't really budged from that. And you sort of put a challenge to it as well, if the opposite can be proven. The statement that he was propagating today was that mankind should not reproduce anymore, right? That's basically one of many things that you talk about, right?
Yes. And I think, it's interesting because you've invited me over here and I know that you're from the Islamic faith, yeah? And I was brought up in an Orthodox Jewish faith, right? And in my faith, I had never met anybody until I was over 30, and I've been to university and lived out in the world, but I'd never really come across anybody that had chosen not to reproduce.
Yeah.
Because in my society, that's just what you did. You get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you get married, you have children, right?
Yeah.
And I had 3 children of my own, and they're 23, 21, and 13. And then only very recently I came across these ideas and these questions. And then I discovered, when I look back into, I didn't do a great deal of research because I don't really do that anymore, but when I look back certainly into Jewish texts, there are a few interesting texts that kind of point to this idea. There is a text that says that they were discussing whether it was better not to have been born or not, and they basically said, the great rabbis said, no, it's better not to have been born. And there are other little beats here and there, and there's probably there must be some kind of Islamic tradition that you find the odd person questioning about being brought here. And then there's pieces also pieces of prophecy, I don't know enough about it, but where the prophet cries out, why did you bring me here, screaming out in pain about the madness of the world, right? Yeah. But those voices have been basically suppressed, right? And the way we live in our time, whatever religion it is, suppresses those voices and encourages actually a lot of reproduction. And I think personally, as you get more extreme in the Orthodox Jewish world, there's more children to the stage where I personally am horrified by it.
Did you, if I may ask, did you have a lot of siblings yourself, or cousins that had a lot of siblings?
Yeah, I have 4 siblings, and the funny thing is that, as it happens now, after a lot of fighting when we were young and a lot of cruelty on my part as well, we get on very, very well, but it's still 5, and I still, I'm amazed when I look at my father and think, what on earth were you doing?
Yeah. So do you think that maybe that, in hindsight, is sort of like a contributing factor to your decision now? That you realize, well, my childhood, it was not that great, or it was maybe great, but then there was so many other things that are not worth it, that other people should go through.
I think there's a whole lot of reasons why you might come to this idea, and there are probably hundreds of thousands of antinatalists, which is the word that's used, or people who come from that kind of perspective in the world. Probably only maybe millions, maybe. That's a very, very, very small group of people. And they come from a variety of places. Some of them are very upset and damaged. Some of them live quite a good life, and some of them are happy, and some of them are sad. I think that there is probably an underlying depression or sadness, and I think that that's appropriate.
Yeah.
To live in the world that we live in is appropriate to feel depressed and sad. Well, I mean, the madness, and it's getting madder and madder.
Yeah.
So, and therefore it's getting, in my opinion, madder and madder to bring more people into this madness.
Yeah.
What chance have they got? What chance have children got? I've been on TikTok a few times. TikTok is like an open house for pedos. It's like you flip up. I didn't even ask for this. I flip up and some teenager, I don't even know how old they are, comes and says that I'm doing a live from my bedroom. How can you bring people into that?
Yeah. I think something that you mentioned early on, and it was along those lines about the cruelty and just the negativity that is out there. Why would a sane person ever want to reproduce in a world like that? There's actually a verse in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that children are a trial for man. So your child becomes a trial for you, you know? And that sort of resonated with me when you said that, because there are difficulties with this. There are difficulties attached with having children, and that's a reality. And I feel like sometimes people tend not to view that, because life has become much more easier now in terms of like the technology and even like the support system that we have, you know. But maybe 100 years ago, I think that verse could have been a bit more better understood, you know. During the Victorian times, I found out that the parents wouldn't even name the children. It would be child number 1, 2, because they would die, you know. So they didn't even bother build emotional relationships with these children. So it's child number 1, 2, and 3, and then child number 6 died because it was working in the factories. So I think it's valid in terms of that having children can be a trial in the sense where you have to be just all the time, or trying to be just. You can't. Impossible. You have to provide. That is a challenge at times, right? These things. So I don't think you're totally wrong, you know. But like I was asking you before, like, where's the balance though? Because at the same time, there's also joy in having children. You had 3 of yours. I'm sure that you had some moments of joy.
I do have a lot of joy, loads of joy, and I've got loads of footage of it as well. And and I probably should visit that more often.
Yeah.
But that again, that's, if you think about it, it's just, now that I look at it,
delusional?
I feel that's delusional. It's delusional and narcissistic. I had a lot of joy out of some other human being's life being put into jeopardy and being put into harm's way and to be put into this precarious reality of human body and human mind and this system and everything. Like.
But don't you think it was maybe vice versa? So that, I mean, if you view it from like an exploitative kind of lens, that your child also had joy whilst you were having joy. So it's symposium, like it's exchange. Don't you think that maybe happened as well? So it's not just one-sided then, isn't it?
Yes, I agree with you, and I
really do sympathize with you.
It's just like the good can't
outweigh the bad.
No, it can't. And as time goes on, the design. This is why and the questions I have, I'm sorry to those people watching, is like, why? I come from a tradition that when someone dies, they say how great God is. To me, I don't understand why everyone's so praising of the creator of this. These bodies, they rot. I'm 53. You know, my teeth are starting to go bad. And it's like, it's just the beginning of it. And it's just so like.
Have you ever looked into like wabi-sabi, like this Japanese philosophy? They find attractiveness and beauty in decay. And for example, when it comes to like pottery, they would like sort of like fix broken pottery with like golden lining inside of it. So they find very beauty and decaying and.
Right.
So it's very poetic in their culture, you know.
Thanks.
But yeah,
I don't want to, like I'm saying, it's like, we don't think about those things. None of us do, right?
Yeah.
We don't think about what's, these children that we're bringing in. We don't think past, almost past just being little babies.
Yeah.
Don't think about what are we going to do, put them in school?
Yeah.
I mean, which parent really, if you think about it, really wants to put a child in an environment like that? It's just not safe.
Yeah.
Right? It's not safe from teachers, idiot teachers. It's not safe from children. It's just not safe.
Yeah.
And you're putting your own child into the
Yeah.
care of these people.
But would you,
And they don't think about the child becoming a teenager themselves and becoming then this and that, and having to fend for themselves and then getting old.
yeah.
We never think about that. But I'm saying to anyone watching, think about that. Think about that before. If I know that I can't stop people having children, yeah.
Yeah.
But if one person, and I hope more than that, will think a bit more carefully before they have a child, to make sure that they understand how much it costs to give a child a decent life here, right? And to realise what it costs in terms of your own self, and your own time, and your own energy, right? And what it takes in costs of your relationship with your partner, the world, the animals, all that stuff. Think about that before you bring someone into existence. Yeah.
But you see, so there's this verse in the Quran which I find very interesting as well, and it talks about this, and it says, all believers, do not kill your children for the fear that you can't feed them.
Say that again?
Do not kill your children for the fear of not feeding them. Because there was a time when people would do that. They would kill their kids because they don't know whether they can feed them. And then Allah says, I provide for them. Now, that's something for me to think about as well. I'm not going to comment on the verse, but I just leave it out there. But another thing I find very interesting is, for example, in Japan right now, right? They had not as many children in the last 30 years or 40 years or 50 years. And it's starting to show now that they're starting to have problems with the economy, because by 2050, I think, half of the population is going to die off. And it's going to be very difficult to sort of carry on the economy with it. So
firstly, these things are very complicated, and you'd have to really be an expert about what's really going on there, number one.
Sure.
Number two, don't forget, that no child should be brought into existence.
I think should just come back to the camera. So,
no child should be,
this way?
sorry. No child should be brought into existence just to keep the Japanese economy going. Do you understand?
Sure.
But that's why people are brought in, and that's what happens to people. And we don't need that anymore now, which has got a real problem, Which I'm not the only person speaking about. Proper people speak about that, that we've got a bunch of useless people now. We don't need them anymore. Everything's automated. Don't need them anymore. We don't need, and in fact, what we've learned from this whole COVID situation, actually, which we won't learn, but I just noted, is that actually half of the stuff, 80% of the stuff we don't need. We don't need live music anymore. What for? What do you need live music anymore? You really need that? No, you've got a lovely machine. You put your headphones on, you get better sound than you would if you were live. You don't need anymore.
But you also understand that due to the social distancing, that there's a lot of mental health that has.
Yes,
because people aren't meeting each other anymore.
Yeah, of course, but they don't care about. The thing is about all that stuff, right? It's either a load of bollocks created by the government, or it really is frightening. Either way, it comes back once again to the primary thing: is that now, more than ever, is a time to question reproduction. I think we all need to start questioning it. We need to think about it differently. And I think that most people would agree, of any type, that we should really ask questions. All of us, our communities, we should get together with all of us and teach our children to ask
Sorry,
questions.
Danny, I just think we're out of the camera. Sorry. So
we should teach our children to ask those questions as part of their education. How much does it cost? All the things that it costs. It's a lot of money to give your children a child. And what toll is it going to take? And what does it mean with your partner? And where are you? What are you going to do? And what happens if you don't? What happens if you're ill? Or what happens if you die? What happens if you die and you leave your child with the other parent? These things need to be answered. And what's happening to the environment? And what chance has that child got? Really, what chance?
I appreciate your sentiment, and I also see where you're coming from, and I think there's a lot of validity in it. But I just feel like it's just half of the story. I'm sorry, because at the same time, I think sometimes, as I said, a first world problem, in fact, that in other places in the world, having children is actually survival. The more children you have, the greater it is for the lineage and the will that is in human being to survive, you know?
No, you don't survive. No, that's an illusion. That's your DNA tricking you.
No, but it's not an
into
illusion.
Thinking, it is. It's your DNA
What, in
tricking you
India?
into thinking that you survive by having children.
But what about
having children isn't going to make any difference. You are going to be obliterated into nothing.
I understand.
You came from nothing,
yeah.
And you will go back to nothing, and it doesn't make any difference if you pump out 10 children or not. It's irrelevant. You will be obliterated.
But that's
there isn't really a you anyway. That's just an illusion as well.
Fair
That's
enough.
just a story you made up about yourself.
Yeah.
Right? But that will be obliterated, and that will never.
But I mean,
exist. That will go into non-existence.
I mean, but then it's not about reproduction anymore. Now this is something deeper. Now we're talking about. We're talking about ontology. So the understanding of being, and we're talking about metaphysics, because now you're entering something where you say, well, when you die, this is going to happen. So that's.
Well, I don't know if you could call it metaphysics. I would just call it.
It's beyond the material.
Yeah, well, I would say nothing. Nothing happens beyond the material.
Yeah,
and that's why it's so absolutely perfectly marvelous, because nothing is better than everything put together.
Yeah, but
it's everlasting peace.
I hear that, but you see, again, I think the point I was trying to make earlier on about it's very difficult to tell that an Indian farmer who lives in a village that he shouldn't have any children because
but you see the thing is that
children.
Again, we can have a nice little talk about that, just for play and entertainment's sake. But this is not about the Indian farmer. This message and this idea, will only penetrate a very, very small percentage, because although it actually makes a lot of sense, it's also, you have to take a huge leap out of your conditioning, which you got from culture, and your makeup of your own DNA, which is the whole soul, the drive of your DNA is to get you to reproduce, and it affects everything, right?
Yeah.
And so...
But that's the point I was trying to make. So how can you try to eradicate something that is so, if you like, you? Why would you? Is it not that in itself?
Because it's a recognition. Because it's a recognition and an understanding and an honest look at myself.
Yeah.
Saying that there's just no good reason. There wasn't. I did do it 3 times, but there was just no good reason for me to continue this. It was just a completely unconscious, darling, let's get married, let's do this, because everyone else, and that's just, really is, it's a sad reflection of humanity, because I was an educated person. It's not like and everyone around me was just like that, so I didn't know anything else.
Because the same way you say that, and I've sort of acknowledged that the Quran talks about these matters, like consciously thinking about what of a huge responsibilities children are for your own sake as well, and their sake.
Yeah.
But then it also talks about, like I was saying, the Quran also talks about finding joy in it, to have children and to have a wife, and to build, and to cultivate, and to destroy. It's just like this flow of life, and the will, it's stronger. That you call it DNA, I call it the will. Like according to Schopenhauer, we've talked about this before. But there's like this very penetrating will, this very aggressive thing in humans that forces us to do this, because it's part of who we are. And don't you think that? I feel like you're doing the opposite. I think you're denying that thing by saying no. I feel like you're denying yourself.
Denying what?
You're denying an integral part of what makes you who you are.
I don't know if I'm denying it.
Because think about it.
I think you're denying. You're denying the nastiness of it. It's
Because-
absolutely nasty.
Because
Your DNA is nasty. It's a nasty, trickful little bastard, basically, piece of coding.
Yeah.
It's a nasty piece of viral coding that is abusing you, yeah, to try and get itself replicated. That is its journey.
Okay.
And it has affected everything, including your ideology, yeah? Because all of these ideologies,
Yeah.
I was brought up with one, yeah? All of these ideologies, your DNA in general, if you can speak about it metaphorically, yeah, DNA, so to speak, loves religions because they just spread it wide.
well, we're not talking about religion now.
Right.
I mean, I'm inferring too.
Okay,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm just saying that,
Sorry,
right?
yeah.
So that's just another crafty way that your DNA and my DNA have operated to pull one over my eyes and think, oh yes, all this lovely talk about all this positivity.
But look, I can't answer the question. You have this very famous challenge, £100 you said.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe one day I will win. But I can't right now. I can give you.
You're more than welcome.
I can
to
give
go
you
for
one
it.
reason.
I will. I genuinely tell you.
Yeah.
If anybody really does come up with a proper reason and it's reasonable, reasoned, and ethical, then I'll come up with the money.
I have one reason, not the bigger question. I will have to think about it.
Okay.
But I have one reason why I believe that you having children made you a better person.
I hope.
Yeah.
I hope that it did. I hope that it pushed me in the right direction. Although I'm not 100%
Because
sure
if you
it
think
did.
about it, a celibate who doesn't have any forms of responsibilities or taking care of anyone is going to struggle to feel or see certain perspectives that you may have because you had children.
Yes.
Right?
I don't deny that being a father has forced me to face some stuff. And some of the stuff I haven't really dealt with properly. I still haven't. Yes, of course, but so does cancer do that to you. But that doesn't mean that of course.
Yeah. But don't you see the beauty in that struggle, that molding? In Arabic, there's this word called fitna, right? And it comes from the root word of it is that burning of gold. When you want to sort of clean gold, what you do is you burn the gold to remove the dirt. And out of that burning, out of that process, a bit like alchemy, you attain a level that you previously couldn't, maybe, And I guarantee you, I know for a fact, because you're dad, there are certain qualities about you that certain people don't have just because they don't have children. And I feel like even you listening to me right now, it's a parent's quality because you have to listen to your children every now and then. Many people can't do that, And it's actually quite rare to see you listening because usually you're up and screaming. So I do appreciate that you gave me the chance to have this very beautiful conversation with you. Yeah. But I will think about the grander question about why, because I think it's a really good question, and I haven't fully done it without doing it. I mean, I would bring religion into it, but then I believe there's also more other reasons,
By the way, here's a question also for you, right? And I've asked this to a Christian and a Muslim, yeah? And that is, if you do believe that there is an afterlife, and you have some kind of belief that you're either going to a good place or a bad place for a long time, yeah? Why would you take the risk in bringing someone into existence knowing that you could be responsible for someone going to hell?
So, Islamically speaking, responsibility has its expiry date. As in, you bring up your children. Oh, sorry, we're out of frame again. So you bring up your children, and you're responsible for them for a given time. And based upon the input and the beliefs that you sort of like practice, if you like, your child is going to have some of these values, but at one point it's going to become autonomous. And that's what I wanted to ask you actually, like, what about autonomy in all of this?
Okay. You know, let's take Islamic teachings out of it for the moment.
Sure.
Yes, maybe technically with Islamic teachings, like Jewish teachings, you know, there's some group of men.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah. Right. I wonder why. Some group of men have decided that, you know, your responsibility is until X and age. Yeah? Let's leave that out for a minute.
Sure.
Yeah? If you bring someone into existence, as far as I'm concerned, if I bring someone to existence, I am going to be interested and concerned about them forever until I die. And therefore, to a great degree, they are my responsibility all the time, whatever that means. All the way through.
Yes, to an extent. Yes, I agree. Imam Ali says, this is the cousin of the Prophet Muhammad. He says, for example, you play 7 years with your child, 7 years you teach him, and in 7 years you're friends. So by the age of 21, hopefully, he has enough autonomy so that he can go out in the world and live. But yeah, what's autonomy?
Yes, but you know, it's not about the autonomy, right?
Okay.
It's about bringing the question is, you brought someone into existence, right?
Okay.
Forget what the Quran says about your responsibility, but if you brought someone into existence, and firstly they could change their mind when they were young, but if they decided that they were 30, like I did, to reject the ideology of my upbringing, then according to your upbringing, and to a certain extent my father's upbringing, you are going, you know, I am going to end up going to hell, right? So it doesn't. So at the end of the day, you're still responsible for bringing me into a creation, knowing that there is a real chance. Why bother doing that? Why don't you just become, like, if you really want to be a good guy, if you really want to do the right thing, if you really want to please Allah, you would adopt a few kids.
Yeah, it's quite, you know, taking care of the
like
orphans.
Or you could adopt, you could foster, you could become a really nice uncle. Yeah. If you really wanted to do something like, you know, take it easy, don't go for the whole full kid thing, you'd be a nice uncle, right? You could, you know, my brother is much more use to my children than I am, and I'm probably more use to his children than he is. You could be an uncle, you could be a teacher.
But you see, being an uncle provides that someone must have children. So we're back to square one.
Well, no, because everyone else is going to be having children.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
the
you
point.
mean that? Yes, okay.
That's the point. So this is a minority understanding. And I believe it is also. I would describe it as real. There is no liberation in the body. As far as I can tell, liberation comes at death. But there's relative liberation, and I can't see how you can be a liberated woman if you're a mother.
I feel like,
you know? And women are just like, all of our society are just brainwashed to think that a woman is just a machine that makes babies. When actually,
I don't think that's how children. What about women having children and sort of having, you know, I mean, if you read Camus or Kierkegaard, well, Kierkegaard really has his religion. He's a bit religious, but Camus and I'm thinking of some other existentialists. But they basically believe that Friedrich Nietzsche, for example, they sort of say you have to carve out your purpose in life, right? Because there really isn't any purpose, right? And the nihilist, are you a nihilist in a sense?
Well, I'm anti-natalist, so
okay.
I guess anti-natalism
kind of sort of crosses sometimes.
Well, I think it comes from a compassionate side, whereas nihilism is, as far as I understand it, is like nothing matters, and therefore not even pain matters, so you can do what you like.
You wouldn't be there. You wouldn't.
I'm not like that. I just think that
Yeah.
I don't think anything matters,
Yeah.
but I think that except pain and suffering.
Yeah.
Suffering matters.
But I
so
think-
like try and reduce it.
Sure. But what these thinkers, they're like, you have to sort of carve out your own purpose in life, right? So
Okay.
some people might find purpose in that, in having children. I read today a story, a very heartbreaking story. There was a lady, she had an autistic child. The house was burning, and guess what happened? The child didn't get out of burning. She ran back inside and died of her son. It's tragic, man, and I don't even know what to say about this. I mean, put myself in that scenario. I have children myself. Like, of course I would do the same thing, but I guess that's just like tragedy and comedy, you know. Life, it's consists of those two things, you know. The Greeks were right when they sort of identified these two forces in life, you know. It's tragic. Life can be tragic. However, and I'm sorry, but I have to bring religion into here again, because like this is how I cope. Because life is transient, and there are limits to life, and it's not about this. It's not about this here. It's about what comes after. And I know it to some people it may come across like a cop-out, you know. It may come across like wishful thinking, but because life is so trivial and so comical at times, right, and so absurd at times, to me there has to be something greater, and that's where my belief system sort of is. And I feel like it helps me to cope with modernism and postmodernism, when all these ideas sort of like float around and all the madness that happens. I'm naturally an optimistic person, so I guess that has a lot to do with how I view the world as well. Yeah, I think that's where it comes from. I'm naturally just very optimistic, and I believe that in the struggle there's beauty sometimes, you know. Because, like, for example, something very personal. I was ill. I suffer from like an autoimmune disease. That's why I'm wearing the mask. You know, I'm better careful than sorry. And prior to that, I also used to sort of consider myself to be physically quite strong and, you know, athletic and stuff. But I was identified with this disease I don't really want to mention here, but and I started losing weight, like heavily. I was very skinny and I felt very weak and vulnerable for the first time in my adult life. Now in hindsight, I've gained weight again, and you know, I'm doing much better. But that moment in my life, I believe, like, I needed that. I needed that sense of vulnerability, how it feels to be vulnerable, how it feels to be weak, because I never knew how that feeling felt. And it opened myself to so many perspectives in life. I was like, wow, I never saw that way, you know? Even the way I would deal with my children, you know, the way I would talk to people. And I believe it sort of made me a better person, but it's not egotistical, because me being a better person only means that I have influence with people around me. And it's sort of like a virus, a positive virus that you pass on, you know? Yeah, I don't know. But I think, again, for the viewers, I don't think that your position is bogus, like a lot of people like to do. Because I don't think they really think about the stuff that you say, because it's quite profound. It's very, very... I can tell that you went very deep, you know? And I really appreciate for your time, Danny.
Nice talking to you.
Thank you very much, Danny. Thanks.